started? All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Stacy Whitecotton, and I'm just going to be moderating the session today, which is on virtual reality. I'm very excited to learn a little bit about this myself. But I had the opportunity to introduce today's speaker, Mfon. I wasn't quite sure how to pronounce that. But Mfon is a full-time faculty member at National Louis University. He holds a bachelor's degree from Illinois Institute of Technology and MBA and Master's in Accounting and Financial Management from the Keller Graduate School. And he's currently a doctoral candidate. He's also an adjunct faculty at Harold Washington. He loves teaching and engaging with the students on and offline. He has some great YouTube videos on his YouTube channel, and he's very passionate about incorporating technology into the classroom. So I can't wait to see what you have to say, and so I'm going to turn it over to Mfon.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Well, let's get started. And I really appreciate being here and the opportunity to share. And as you mentioned, I guess there's no introduction needed. What I like to do today is to talk about, and I like to walk around, so I may move around a little bit, talk about what motivated me to explore virtual reality, what virtual reality is, and the benefits of using it in the classroom, and then answer any questions that you may have at the end. So, what motivated me and what got me interested in virtual reality is that gentleman right there. His name is Scott Showalter. So he doesn't have anything to do with virtual reality. Actually, I saw a presentation that he did at the American Accounting Association annual meeting in 2017, where he was demonstrating how he uses a game called Second Life to help students, I'm seeing some heads now, to help students learn how to audit inventory, inspect finished goods inventory. So who's heard of Second Life? Okay, I see some hands. What have you heard about it?
Well, actually, I went in and looked at it a couple of years ago, and they even give seminars even through the Accounting Association out there in Accounting Island, or for being able to connect with others from different places. So
Right.
that's what I've seen it used as.
Okay, good, great, thank you. Saw some other hands.
Years ago when it first came out, it was interesting. So, and then I saw where certain schools may have graduation ceremonies on the ring lines and everything. So I thought it was something about.
Right, good. Anyone, one more person?
I had a colleague of mine had gone to that same conference where you were exposed to it and saw him present. She came back and shared.
Yes, it was great. And has anybody played Second Life? No, yes.
Not that. But I mean,
Well, in general, you played it. What was your experience in playing? How did it go?
well, it depends on what you're looking for. You can find anything you want out there. You know, so there'd be some places you might avoid, or some places you might like to go to, and you know, you can be your, I guess it's still called avatar, whatever you want to be. You know, and it's been a while since I looked at it, but they could actually build things and sell. So even before Bitcoin was out, that currency, you know, we had discussing in class about the value of this currency, of people getting their house built or an island built.
Right.
And as I was looking around, I did actually find they had churches online, and so I met, just to see what it was like, I went to a service on like a Monday night at 7 o'clock to see what it was like. It was interesting.
Yeah, it is. It was very, very interesting, and I was so excited about it. I thought it was amazing. And I went back to Chicago, ignited, and I wanted to try to add to what Scott was doing and improve on it. So when I got back to Chicago, I reached out to CEOs of local virtual reality companies, and I was lucky enough to be mentored by some of them. And then ultimately joining what's called the VRARA. So that's the Virtual Reality, it's a mouthful, right? Virtual Reality Augmented Reality Association. So it's a global community where I served on the education committee. Then I was able to contribute to white papers. I wrote an article and was invited to give a TEDx talk on virtual reality as well. So I have a lot to thank Scott Showalter for motivating me to get interested in virtual reality. So just to clarify, virtual reality can be created with what they call computer generated or CG content, or real life images or film. So real life images or film. The other thing is immersive. So when you say immersive, you feel like you're inside the scenario, you feel like you're in the environment. Now the thing with the immersive portion, depending on how you access virtual reality, that impacts your level of immersion. So if you're using a headset, so like an Oculus Rift or a HTC Vive, that's considered a high level of immersion. You're actually in that environment. Now, if you're using a smartphone to access this, it's a lower level of immersion, but it's still virtual reality. So has anybody, just checking in, used virtual reality? See the demonstration? How was it demonstrated?
Where they did the cell phone, and we have just like the basic goggles where the students can stick their cell phones in to access it. But I'm interested to hear how we can like do that with the camera.
Yes.
It was other, content.
It was okay, good. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I just used it for different games that friends had. I think one of them was called like a fear game or something where you conquer your fear, whether it's like birds or whatever, like heights.
That's cool. That's good. That's good. Were you wearing a headset?
It was Oculus.
Yeah, the Oculus Rift.
My first experience was my daughter's My Little Pony game. And she used her iPad, and all of her little ponies were in the room with us, and I was like, "What is that?"
Yeah. See, so that was on it. That wasn't with the headset.
Right. That was just what did you call the low end or
Low level
Low
of
level.
immersion. That's what they call
low
it.
level? Okay.
That's good.
Really cool.
That's good. Anybody else with that? So that's great because, well, right now you mentioned gaming. The biggest market for virtual reality is the gaming industry. Behind that is the training industry. And what's interesting is, so last week I was at the Ohio Region meeting giving a talk on virtual reality, and someone mentioned that they bought their house through virtual reality. So what had happened, there was a situation where they couldn't go and look at the house, but they needed to buy the house, and they actually did what they call a virtual tour.
Yeah.
So this goes back to that low level of immersion, right? So it's like a 360 view. That's virtual reality. So many times we may not even know that we're using virtual reality because you may see it, you look for a house, look for an apartment, you're buying a car, you're looking to see how a room with furniture, you can move it around. That's all virtual reality. So that's good. Yes, sir.
So, I have a person working for me, and she's using some software where she can picture the whole room, and then you can walk through the rooms. And we're doing that for training with new faculty, like here's where you get your keys. This is what the classroom looks like, and this is the buttons you press to turn this on. But she says there's some software that she's using to do this, and she's creating these little video things.
Yeah.
And they just see them on your cell phone.
Yeah, is it, so let me ask you this question, just to clarify. Is this real life? So is this the actual footage of the place?
It's the footage of the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the actual footage. Does that completely do
There's special cameras?
Yeah, there's
There's software though she's
That
got.
could be 3D.
It's a 3D, yeah, it's 3D imaging, and then you can go through it.
Yeah.
And then she has this other software where you put this phone in this box, it looks like.
Yeah.
And you through it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's the other software she's connecting it to. So I don't know if they're the same thing.
They're the same thing. That's what we're talking about. So sounds like the first thing, and that's what I use, is what they call a 360 camera.
That's it.
So you use you're getting real, you're capturing real life.
Yeah.
So the other one is that computer generated, and I think that's where you were going with, where you use Unity, and you can buy, it's a software, which is really, they call it a game engine called Unity, and you can buy assets, digital assets, and people buy them. So if you wanted to create a room, you can, the wallpaper, the color, you can buy it. The chairs, someone has created it, you buy the chairs to use in your scenario.
Well, the software's real cheap for the universities, colleges, and she subscribes to it. And then we're able to do, I don't know what the hell she's doing, that's why I'm here. I'll tell you what, it's pretty slick. We've got a new faculty person that pulls it up here, and they know what building they're going, and where to get their keys, and how to turn stuff on, because we have remote campus.
Oh, it sounds like a virtual tour.
It is, but you get to go where you want to go.
Yes.
You can kind of
Yes.
click around where you want to go.
Yes. We're talking about the same
The same thing, okay.
Yes.
Sorry,
that's
that's
good.
kind of that.
No, this is good. That's what I want. This is engaged. I'm going to ask you guys a lot of questions, so that's good. Speaking of which, to kind of turn it to the classroom, let me ask you about your students. What have you noticed about your students' screen time? I'm seeing now. What are the screen time?
It's high.
They show me their homework on these things.
Yeah,
They say, I can't see that.
They do everything.
I can't do everything on that.
They're doing everything on that.
They're doing everything. So in the classroom, what are they doing with their phones? They're on their phones. Right?
Using it as a calculator.
Yeah.
Or
Calculator.
into that, and then
Or
they're also
just
checking
texting.
on that.
Yeah.
They're looking through stuff. What else? What do you think else they're looking at? How many ideas?
Well, everything.
I think anything is early.
I mean, our homework
They're
managers
texting.
are downloaded on their phones. I mean, we'll say they're studying, and in addition to everything else.
Right. Well, let's take a look at this slide. Do you think this is an accurate assessment? We got 4 generations. We got baby boomers. We got the Gen Xers, millennials. So this is Generation Y, right? And then we've got Gen Z. So anybody born after 1996. So do you think this is an accurate assessment as far as Gen Z, Gen Y, Generation X, and baby boomers?
I think so.
I don't know where the Gen Zers being practical, maybe.
I've read that there, I've heard a lot about practical learning,
Okay. I have one child that is a millennial and one Z. So, and they are very different. I didn't, they are very different. And it's interesting to see there really is a difference in those two.
Okay. What do we see in most of our classrooms?
I get all
Is it all of them?
I get a lot of vets, older people.
Okay. Like you said, a lot of gens.
So veterans and, a lot of vets I get, and they're older,
Okay.
and then I get high schools, 16-year-olds.
So Gen Z. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, our focus on the conversation is going to be around the Gen Z on that one end of the spectrum, which kind of, it filters back. And what I mean by that is, so you see this, Gen Z spends 6 hours or more a day on their smartphone, right? So it lowers as you go to the millennials and Gen X, etc. But that's 6 or more hours a day on the smartphone. Now this is not including other devices. This is just being on the smartphone, not including watching Netflix or having their tablet open or having the computer open. So if we look at that number for media, it's way higher, right? So, and when you think about the multitasking, it's taking our attention. So when you think about Gen Z and the average attention span, it's 2.8 seconds. Yeah. And I was thinking when Connie was giving her piece, she was talking about a 10-minute video. Well, if you look at the average attention span, it's 2.8 seconds. For Gen Y or millennials, it's a whopping 8 seconds. What are your thoughts on that?
Makes me keep, I just make sure I keep mine like, if I can keep them 5 to 3 minutes on my videos and stuff, I'm good.
Right.
They get it.
Right.
And then they can, so if I can take a long video that I've done in the old days, chop it up,
Yes.
then they like it,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah, on that same point, we see, I'm in a marketing division, and we see drop off at like a minute and a half to 3 minutes. You start
Yeah.
dropping off. People, they don't want to watch that long.
Right. Right. Yeah. Anyone else? Thoughts on this? On the intentions? Well, what are they looking at? So what are these 13 to 34-year-olds looking at? I think someone said they're looking at videos online, right? And another name for this is what they call live streaming. Have you heard of live streaming? So you're doing a lot of live streaming as well. And I've got a question for you. What are the top 4 companies in the U.S. that use peak internet time? Top 4 companies.
Facebook, probably.
What you say?
Facebook,
Facebook.
YouTube,
Okay, I give you YouTube. You
Netflix.
Google. Okay. You said Netflix. You said
I didn't say anything.
Netflix. Facebook is there. It's not in the top 4.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's your
Instagram. Yeah.
Instagram, that's tied in with Facebook.
Snapchat.
Snapchat, no, it's not up there. Facebook.
Amazon Prime.
Amazon, you're close. I'll give you Amazon.
Hulu.
And we'll see why. I'll give you Amazon indirectly, and we'll see why. I'll come back to that one.
Hulu.
Not in the top 4.
Okay.
Not in the top 4.
So have we gotten any of the top 4?
You did. So
Which
we
one?
got YouTube,
YouTube.
Netflix,
Okay.
and then indirectly Amazon. So you got 3. I'll give you the 3.
Hulu? I don't know.
Hulu is not. It's not in the top 4.
Who are we missing?
Snap.
What is it?
Who are we missing?
Twitter.
No.
RX seconds, is that attention?
Exactly. That was good. That was good. Here's the answer. So you've got Netflix.
Twitter.
Apple.
That's the gaming one.
You got. That's where I'm going. We're going to Twitch. So you got Netflix, Google. I gave you YouTube. You said which
I
one?
did say Twitch.
Oh, you did. I didn't hear it.
did.
You didn't. Oh, I'm
I said,
sorry.
yeah, when he said Twitter, I said Twitch at the same time. I'm just thinking one of my kids watching it.
Oh, gotcha. So that's the
Amazon
thing.
bought
So we
Twitch.
got the top 4, and then Amazon owns Twitch. So that's why I heard that Amazon, they own Twitch. So and we were looking at the top 4. So where I'm going with this is, what is Twitch?
It's
People-
a live stream service,
Showing what they're doing
yeah,
to other people.
gaming.
Showing what they're doing.
You can play games and
Watch
what people can just watch you
Watch
play
what they're
games
doing.
and they can do it very fast. This is the fastest way, I know this because my husband live streams this. He has a Twitch account, and you just play, fastest way to play a game, how to beat the game, how, marathons of this, there's just everything.
Yeah.
So my son's Christmas present is a video capture card,
Okay.
so he can be on Twitch.
Well,
You're on Twitch. Okay.
so I have a Twitch account. I don't know a lot about it, but my kids have an account. I have an account. But we used to watch things like Overwatch League. That's a game on Xbox. We would watch those kind of leagues on there. And when at this conference the other night, I was on ESPN2, and they had the Overwatch League.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What are you doing?" I'm watching Overwatch League. I'm like, "Oh, ESPN2." So your gaming competitions and stuff is what you watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's coming, esports, it's called esports.
Esports on
Yeah.
And so some of them are coming to ESPN, so it's
Yes.
interesting.
They said that's the second watched event, the Esports Super Bowl to the Super Bowl.
Yes, it is. It is.
And I kind of had to get my head wrapped around it. My kid would rather watch somebody play a video game because he understands the combat than watch soccer, or where I want to watch basketball because I used to play it.
Now high schools is slow, but high schools are picking that up as official sports.
It is.
And, I mean, you've got high school teams and college teams.
Colleges are getting
Yeah,
scholarships.
You
college.
know, our local
College.
college has a team, and my son's in early college, and they're having a tournament, a fundraiser next week, and you're gonna pay $3 to watch, $10 to compete, and they're gonna do these games.
Wow.
The colleges are giving full scholarships
Yeah, they
to
are.
people, and it's
In
not
game.
regulated by the NCAA.
Yeah,
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 and Columbia College of Missouri is number one
yeah,
in the country, gaming.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
You
yes.
should be very proud.
I had to finally go, wait a second, why am I going to watch somebody put a plastic ball through a hoop? It's because I played and I understood it, right? Or
Okay.
watch somebody go play football. Why do we fill stadiums watching these people do these things?
Right, right,
Because we can associate with the complexity of it,
Yeah.
and we try it and goes, they're so much better than I am.
right.
I can't tell that. When I watch a video game, I don't play any. So my son, I can't tell that something spectacular happened.
Right.
But my child can.
Yes,
It's like, how did he know how to like counter that move?
yes,
They
yeah.
plan ahead. Like one of my children have ADHD, so
Right.
I'm always reading about it. And so in the game Fortnite, it was saying
That's where we're
that
going.
the game, it's actually helping ADHDers some because they're planning at the end, because you know that clock's always ticking. So they're looking at their supplies and their inventory, and you know, when you're impulsive, you're about now, and it really makes them, they spend a lot of time playing that game and they're thinking about the future, and it's actually helpful.
So it's probably helping them learn those critical thinking skills that we're obviously
I mean,
not doing in our 30-minute lecture.
There's tons of downsides, there's tons of negatives, but that was a positive, that it could help them plan ahead better.
It's teaching them those critical thinking skills.
Right, right. Well, what's another positive with Twitch, which made it unique? Does anyone know what that is?
I never heard of it before today.
So Twitch, popular platform, because you're absolutely right. You go on there to watch other people play video games live and also record it, but you can give them money. That was the big thing with Twitch. So where I'm from in Chicago, there's someone who's a legend. His name is Ninja. I don't know if you know Ninja. He's from the Chicagoland area. So if I go into class, I want to get everybody talking. I ask them, what's Ninja doing? And they'll talk about Ninja. Why? Why is he so special on Twitch? He disclosed he makes $500,000 a month on Twitch from people giving him money to watch him play Fortnite.
Yeah, all that's definitely true.
Yeah, which is interesting.
But he's not, and I said to my son, is he the absolute best? He goes, not
No, he's
necessarily,
not.
Dad, he's just more entertaining.
He's not the best. He's about ranked number 6, but he's more entertaining. People like to watch him. He makes a majority of his money from Twitch, YouTube. He has 21 million subscribers. Watch him there. He gets paid from Red Bull, and I think Uber sponsors him, and so he gets a lot of sponsorships. So in Chicago, and everybody knows about this guy. So we talk about him, everybody lights up because they all know he's making a lot of money, you know, and they want me to let them play Fortnite in class. You know, so this is what's going on. So they're having these experiences, they're watching other people. So when we talk about virtual reality and what it is more immersive than traditional learning. It's more immersive than traditional learning. So you're actually in that scenario, or you're in that scene, or in that environment. It takes you to another place. It's interactive. And what I mean by interactive, not only, as you mentioned with that classroom or virtual tour for faculty, where you can move around and you have to find the key.
You know how to open the window.
But you've got to open the window. You learn how to open the window and do things. It's a process. So I'm giving an example, and this is it's a snapshot from, I call it, it's a commercial. I think you're in marketing. This is actually a commercial. I call them commercial experiences, and it was created by the Next Now agency. So if you want to see the full thing, you can go to their website. They're a marketing and advertising agency in Chicago that specializes in virtual reality advertising. So I took part of this experience, which is a McDonald's NASCAR experience. So McDonald's sponsors NASCAR. And I used in this case, and that's the HTC Vive headset. So I had one of those headsets on, and once you put it on, you are actually in the pit in the NASCAR track. So you see thousands of people, you hear them, and you're in the pit, the crew is there, and the next thing you know, the car drives in. And don't ask me the name of the driver. I can't think of the name of the driver, but he drives in, and you've got your time. So you've got to change the front tire and the back tire. So you're able to remove the bolts, take the tire off, and put it to the side. Now, mind you, where I was at with this experience, everyone could see what was going on in the real world, what I was doing. So I took the tire off and put the tire on, took the other tire off, put another one on, and I'm standing there, and then the driver's like, come on, come on, come on. And then everybody's looking at me in the virtual world, then I hear a voice saying, give him the Big Mac. So I'm looking around, and on top of a tool chest is a Big Mac. So I had to give him the Big Mac, the driver takes it, and then he can move off. So otherwise we're stuck in this limbo. Right? So this is an advertisement, right? But this is how it's interactive. Now, when we talk about knowledge retention, I was able to find some research in a classroom that was done in China. So it was done in a class where a physics class, where they took 10 students, gave them a physics lesson in virtual reality, then had 10 other students that had a traditional lecture with PowerPoint on the same subject. So what they did, and the technology they used was what they call an HTC Vive headset. Again, that's one of the highly immersive, high-end headsets that you'll see, similar to the Oculus Rift that you were using. So they gave the students the lesson, and then they tested each group immediately after. So the ones who had the lecture, they got tested. The ones who had the VR lecture or the VR experience, they were tested immediately. Then they tested the students 2 weeks later. So what did they find out? Well, after the immediate test, the students with the VR lesson scored 27.4% higher than the students who had the traditional lecture. Then when it came back, the delayed test 2 weeks later, they saw that the students that had the virtual reality lesson, they scored 32.4% higher. Now, the question I had when I was reading it, well, there's several questions that came up. Would this translate from physics to accounting to math to other subjects? But I don't know. This is physics, right? And how was the lesson delivered? Because we were discussing Unity. Was it actual, footage, or was it computer-generated content? Does that make a difference? Don't know. As well as, would this be the same if the level of immersion was different? So if they weren't using the headset, would it be the same if they were looking at this on their smartphone? Would there be any difference? So that was some questions that came up, but this leads us in that direction that it does help with knowledge retention. So, the other thing with virtual reality, we talk about being the future. And why is it the future? Well, the smartphone. So more and more people have smartphones which are able to support virtual reality and 360 videos. So when we talk about that low immersion, just about everyone has the capability to view virtual reality. And I guess I'm going to go on a higher level. As far as business, we see virtual reality increasing along with what they call XR. I don't know if anybody heard XR, the term XR technology.
I have an iPhone XR.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah, that's what I know about XR technology.
Well, so what they do, so I'll explain this. So there's virtual reality, There's augmented reality, and there's something called mixed reality.
Okay.
So I try to look at them, they're all cousins, right? So they, and what they do is they lump them all together and call it XR, which stands for extended reality. So you see augmented reality, you got the Snapchat filters, the Facebook, I don't know if you've seen the Snapchat filter, that's the augmented reality. But when you talk about XR in general, you think about the business strategy aspect. So for example, IKEA, huge part of their expansion strategy is their IKEA Place app. Has anyone seen that, their app? IKEA Place.
I've heard of it though. You can go in and create a room and.
Well, what it does, very good, exactly. What happens, instead, their idea is they can promote that app, and they may not have to expand and build stores in certain markets. Because with that app, you can go and look at, let's say, a chair. You go in their catalog, there's a chair, there's a sofa, there's a bed, there's a lamp. You scan your room, you tap on your phone, you can put that lamp, that chair, anywhere in your room and move it around and see what it looks like.
Right.
So you don't have to go to the store. And they don't have to build the store. And you can order it online. So we see more and more of this in different strategies as far as business strategy. So, and we're getting to how I use this in the classroom. And I've come up with really 3, I guess, best practices for using virtual reality. One, accessibility. So when designing content, I look for the easiest way for students to access it, which is their smartphone or desktop computer or tablet. So when creating the content, I don't think about a headset first.
Right.
I think about the smartphone first, and if the student would like to, they can scale up and use the content in another medium and access it. The other thing is straightforward. That ties into what you were mentioning about your videos. We've got the same rule. You said 3 to 5 minutes, or you said 5?
3 to 5, that's it.
Yeah, my max is 5. And usually I'll wind up at about 2 or 3 minutes with the content. And just like you were mentioning, if I'm going to talk about the balance sheet, income statement, and statement of cash flows, yeah, I wouldn't do that in one video, right?
Only one video to tie the 3 together. That's the 4th video.
yes, exactly.
How they articulate.
Yes, you have the, not only is it because of that attention span, but then they can kind of go to what they want to go to when they want it, so they have more options. So that's the other part. And the realistic, so the difference with the virtual reality filming versus making a YouTube video or broadcasting live or a screen capture is, one, you're always in the shot. You're always going to be there because it's capturing everything. So you need to be cognizant of the experience you're trying to create. For example, most of what I use the content for are for online classes, right? So I look to give the experience for the students that they're actually in a classroom, sitting in the front row with me there. So Heather, what were you going to say?
So, have you designed a whole class around this technology? Have you been able to deliver all the content using this technology?
No, I've not been able to deliver. If you mean give out all of my lectures and things on the class, no, I haven't.
This is cool.
it is. There are people who have.
Oh,
I use it more as a supplement.
okay.
So I add to it. But there are people who have, actually they broadcast live and they have their classes in VR.
Yeah.
Go in. It is. So I wanted to just show you, just give you a little bit of idea before I show you some of the content that I put together. So this is an actual photo. So some of these are trips that I've taken, but I haven't taken because I've been there virtually. You know, so in this one, and this is another, I call it commercial experience. So in this one, I'm with Dale Earnhardt Jr., and we're on the Bristol Motor Speedway, where it is actually a Mountain Dew commercial. So I get in the car with him, I'm riding in the back seat, we're driving around, he's talking, And then we go to the Bristol Motor Speedway, do some laps, and then the Mountain Dew car passes us up, and then we race. And so it's a whole experience you have, and I'm able to take a picture of it. So this was done with what's called an Oculus Go. So it's not the Rift, it's Oculus Go. Another shot, so I went to see the Mona Lisa, but I didn't go anywhere. I like telling this story, showing pictures. So I was at an art gallery virtually. So I'm able to see the Mona Lisa, move around, look at the painting. If I click on it, you actually go inside and it shows a scene, it takes you back in time. And she's sitting there, you can go into the room and you can see the environment and what things look like at that time. Mona Lisa. I don't know if anybody's from South Dakota. So I've been to Mount Rushmore, but I hadn't really been to Mount Rushmore. So I'm standing there looking at Abraham Lincoln, right? Taking pictures. I can see everything as if I'm there, but I'm not actually there. So I'm hoping this will work. So this is a video. There it is. So this is a video that I put together. And there's no sound, so I'm sorry. So this is what they call a 360 video. So this is virtual. Oh, you can hear it. So if you move around, so when you're on the computer, you see that little circle there? That's a nav bar, so you can navigate around. And it's not playing properly. But that's me in the classroom. I was standing on one foot, saying it's not what a balance sheet is about. It's not about balancing, but you can move around in the classroom. It's not, for some reason, it's not streaming properly. But
So you recorded yourself in the classroom?
yes,
Okay.
I recorded myself in the classroom using a 360 camera.
Yeah.
How many different brands are in the game? Or?
It's what, here's the camera, I can pass it around and look at it. This is a 360. What were you saying? What was the question?
How many different brands are there? Just
Oh, there's many different brands. There's many different brands. I chose the Samsung. So what I was using there is a Samsung Gear 360. So I used that. That was the most, I guess, cost effective for me. And also, I have a Samsung smartphone. So it's easy for me to link up to my smartphone and to actually create the content, use the camera, and put it together. So.
And then you just uploaded it to YouTube, and then do you get all the functionality of YouTube where you get the captioning and everything else still?
That's a good question. So there's some steps in there. So there's some steps. So and really, that was a good question. I'm gonna answer that, but just to add to it, a lot of this was, number one, I had some mentors. So I'm gonna answer the question. So I had some mentors from people, when I talked about those CEOs, VR companies, they own gaming companies. So they make a lot of VR video games. And when I first got the camera and started doing this, I was kind of excited about it. And I would send them the footage and say, what do you think about this? So a couple of things they taught me. One, you can't walk around with the camera. So I was walking around with the camera and talking and moving around, right? So that was the first thing. And, I didn't know, but people get what's called VR sickness. And it's like motion sickness. So when you're moving around, and it's like they're moving around, some people, they get ill from that. So that was one. The other thing I began to see, this comes with editing software, but I had to figure out how to get that video downloaded. And so what was more efficient, I broadcast live on YouTube. Then from YouTube, I download it as an MP4. Then I can edit it and add to it. Then, if I post it on Facebook or back on YouTube, I usually use what's called a video. So you can Google it. It's a Google Video Injector. There's the software you have to inject So it recognizes that it's a 360 video. And then you check it, put it in. And you can upload it to Facebook supports it, YouTube supports it. From what I understand, Periscope, don't quote me, but from what I understand, Periscope and Twitter supports it now as well, 360 content. So I upload to YouTube. And then I'm able to do that closed captioning and things like that to it.
You broadcast live to YouTube.
Yes.
Can you have to do it live, or can you just record it and then send it out to YouTube?
You don't have, that was a good question. The issue is you got to download these files. So then you start transferring the files. So I found it easier once it's in YouTube and it's processed. You can go in your YouTube account. You just click download MP4, and that's pretty quick. And then what you can put it into the editing software and add to it. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, so they're obviously digitizing it and translating for you. That sounds nice, right? And you're sending from that camera, 360 camera?
Yes.
Okay. And then what are you using software? Are you using Adobe or are you using something else?
I don't use Adobe. I use the Samsung video editor.
Samsung.
So when you buy the camera, it'll come with, well, that camera comes with a video editing software, which is pretty easy to use. Pretty easy to use. So that's one. The other thing, and that was a good question, the other thing that my mentors explained to me, and they advised me to watch the New York Times in VR. So I don't know if you looked at the New York Times in VR. CNN is in VR, so they broadcast the news. What they advised me, what is more interesting, is to have actual segments. So, in other words, you film, you're talking a little bit for one segment, and then you stop, and then you have another segment, and then you have another, and you put those together, so it creates some type of movement. It makes it interesting. So if you're interested to see what that looks like, you go to New York Times in VR, and you can see they broadcast the news in 360 video in this format. You get to see how that looks. The other thing you can do, you can go on YouTube and just type in 360, and it'll pull up a ton of these videos. You'll be able to see.
So
Yes, sir.
Facebook bought Oculus. New York
Yeah.
Times got bought by Bezos.
Okay.
I don't know.
How is it going, or how is it tied?
I thought somebody bought the New York Times just for fun.
Yeah.
The Amazon guy, of course.
Yeah, Bezos. Yeah. But with this, you're right. Facebook purchased Oculus. So when you talk about the Oculus, and they have a huge push on getting people to use their Oculus products. Yes.
Oh, just a commentary. When you were showing the tests, the results in physics, because to me, it really makes the student engaged. So they're actually living it, they're part of it. So rather than something they've read in a textbook or heard a professor talk about, they've experienced it. I think that's something where these kids are different. So I'm visualizing, even in Accounting Principles 1, doing an inventory, FIFO, LIFO, how you could be demonstrating that,
Yes.
with bags of M&Ms or different, and then make an experience out of it.
Yes.
That 2.8 seconds, but seriously, so they've experienced counting the M&M.
Yes.
And that follows all cognitive load research, about they've experienced it, so it just goes right to that long-term working memory.
Yes.
And so it's just unlimited. But I and I appreciate your sharing your experience because you're really kind of in the forefront of playing with this and finding an application for it. But it's exciting. I'm interested.
let me just piggyback. You're absolutely correct. So two things. As far as experience, a lot of as far as the training, so you see at University of Illinois, in the medical school, they use VR for doctors to practice instead of cadavers, right? Because so you can't buy dead bodies, but there's a cost. So it's about $1,000 a cadaver. So they're able to train over and over and over and over again, so they get that experience. And then the other point I wanted to make, which was really great, just to piggyback, when I came back from California, I had that idea. You gave me an idea about the M&Ms, but my idea was to go into local manufacturing companies and put my camera in there and film. So I called them up, different manufacturers, called. Do you think they let me come in and film there? No. So I had to pivot. But the M&Ms, that's a great idea. That's a great idea.
I use a C container. So some C containers have a front door and a back door, and some just have one set of doors for LIFO. I don't know. That might help your M&Ms. Is there any use of green screens in any of this?
There are. To give a background, there's something called volumetric. I don't know if you heard of volumetric cameras or volumetric photography. It's 3D type photography. All of these things can tie into virtual reality. So yeah, it can be a factor with the green screen in virtual reality.
But most people are just using live film on,
Yes.
and then they can add graphics into it. That would be augmented.
For augmented, virtual, so usually the path of least resistance, right, which is the easiest to use and the most accessible, so yes. Now, to the point you were making, I see a lot of this stuff, I'm kind of entrenched in this, and from when you expand out of virtual reality into augmented reality and mixed reality, which is, I'll touch on it. Mixed reality is where you combine the actual real life with the virtual life. You won't believe it. So I'll give you an example. Has anybody seen Iron Man movie where Tony Stark is moving stuff in the air? So has anybody seen the Microsoft HoloLens? So Microsoft, it's an enterprise product. So as part of their enterprise suite, they have, go ahead, you were going to say.
Yeah, I think I've seen it.
So it's glasses, goggles you put on. It's actually a computer that you can wear. And you can actually, so I'm in this room, I want to put a computer here. I can have a computer here and just start typing. So I will see all of these images, right? Like Tony Stark, you won't see them, but I'll see them. It's got Excel, it's got PowerPoint, Word. You can surf the internet, you can communicate and see things in the air. So that's one of their huge enterprise products, which they're pushing to displace jobs. Does anyone have an idea of how this will displace jobs? It's a job displacement. Well, how it will displace jobs. So imagine you have 5 factories, and in each one of those factories you have 5 engineers, right, working in those factories. Well, you pay Microsoft, you have the HoloLens. Now you have one engineer who's managing 5 technicians through this technology, because he can see what they're doing, he can talk to them, he can see where they're going and guide them on what to do. So now you're paying one engineer, and now you have lower level technicians. That's their big push.
So what you're doing is the replication of people in space for different times. You're eliminating all of that. And
Right.
You're saying this is the
Yeah.
constant time and space once, and then you can replicate that experience anywhere.
You're kind of saying now you can be in 3 places
Right.
at one time.
Yes.
You can be, and you
Yes,
can't
you can.
multitask because the thing is playing to 20 people all at the same time.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting.
On scale.
You get excited about it. You know, and we were talking about it because the interesting thing is a lot of these things you may use or hear about, but you may not know. So last week we were talking about drones. Someone was talking about drones, right? For audience, has anybody heard of using drones? How do they fly the drones?
Well, at our school, we have a drone program on how to fly the drone. And what we're really finding out, because my family's in agriculture,
Yes.
you get the drone in a box from someone who contracts with John Deere, and you open the box, and there's a program that launches it, and then the computers and the satellites take over and then start mapping the field, and it's flying itself.
Right.
And you are not visibly flying it, you initiate
That's
it.
true.
And that's what it's turned into, where we thought all these jobs were gonna be for these guys to fly these drones around. And these,
The AI.
the
Right.
big commercial stuff, you know, because when we do grapes at night with the automatic pickers, all that's, you know, with drones flying around doing the mapping,
Yes.
we're send that machine to pick. And it's incredible, it's right out of a box,
Yes.
it's shipped to you.
Exactly.
You press a button, it launches, it maps the whole field.
Yes.
And you have to set up this telemetry around the field to talk to the John Deere big satellite hub that talks to about 25 toasters up in outer space.
Yes.
Floating around, you know. They're little satellites, they're itty bitty satellites.
Those many satellites.
And so that's been my experience. It's like, well, this is incredible.
It is. And well, I was just going to say, the guys that do fly the drones, how do they fly them?
Sits really.
It's like,
Virtually.
yeah,
Virtually.
virtually, yeah.
Yeah, so we use this technology, we may not know it, but we're using it. I'm sorry, go ahead, what were you gonna say?
John Deere is mapping I'm in farming too,
Yeah.
so you're nice to chat, but they're mapping every square
Every
inch.
square inch.
And, I don't know, I hear that they own that data.
Yep.
If you are now, even though you purchase it, you might just be leasing their equipment.
Yeah, so it is
It's
interesting.
the days of our economy.
I wanna be respectful of time. Any questions? Like we did a lot of questions. We did a lot of questions.
What's on your screen?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you in different languages.
In lots of different languages.
Well, just one thing I was going to add. Maybe there's a company in Chicago called In Context Solutions, and if you go to their website, so I just thought about this. And if you go to their website, they've got quite a few case studies. So of their business partners. One big one where I'm from is Walgreens. I don't know if anybody heard of Walgreens. So what they did for Walgreens is, I don't know if you know, these retail stores, they have mock stores. You know, they have a mock-up store inside the layout. What In Context Solutions offers is a virtual store. So how did that save Walgreens a lot of money? So a lot of these executives, they don't have to fly there, they don't have to maintain a real store. They have a virtual store anyone can access and move around. So that's one thing, but it's very interesting how they did that with Walgreens and Pepsi.
All right, well, I think that we should probably break at this point. I'm sure you're going to be around again.